Honestly, I feel kind of sad about this chapter, mostly because of Denji and how he feels the decision that he has to make and the ultimatum that he has to choose between, and mostly how it's pushed all through Naoyuta. I think the previous chapter gave us a pretty good example and anticipation of what to expect, but I don't think any of us were expecting the type of perception that she truly had. She is a lot more controlling in a way that is definitely more directed towards Denji being an object of significance. She views Denji as property, but in a way that still seems rather valuable, not as a useless object, but more so an object of affection. It's a little bit murky or weird how you can conflate a lot of those things, and this is a prime stage for Naoyuta, her growth, her understanding of the world and people within it, and when you're mixing that with one of the most powerful beings to exist, the control devil, it's just a hard time through and through. So Denji's doing his best. He kind of works with Naoyuta in deals, in agreements. I'll do this and you do that, vice versa. And this is ultimately what the chapter kind of boils down to, but in a pretty sad way, in a way that doesn't really help Denji, but also kind of protects him because Naoyuta does mean well, but at the same time, it takes away Denji's agency of himself, his freedom, so to speak. But then there's also the controlling factor for Naoyuta and how she looms over Denji. So it's a mixed bag of perspectives. It's a mixed understanding of the situation, and it just feels off. You can't help but feel like you've been done wronged by the end of the chapter and that Denji deserves better. Do you remember how I questioned the chain going through Asa's head? Turns out it is actually an ability. This chain being very iconic to the Control Devil's character, to Makima specifically, obviously alludes to the idea of control, but into what sense we didn't really know. However, now we do. This gives Naoyuta pretty much complete control over the brain and function of the being. So no requirements have to be met. She just forcefully does it. And she can rewrite, change, and manipulate the mental, emotional, and even physical aspects of the person that the chain goes through. This is what happens to Asa. She starts barking like a dog, and Naoyuta's getting a ton of enjoyment out of this. And the reasoning why she done this is because Asa, or Yoru, tried to kiss Denji, and Naoyuta did not like that. She was not having any of it. Now, the reason why I mentioned that they slightly work in agreements or deals is that while Denji is saying that he's his own property and to turn Asa back immediately, Naoyuta says she can't do it and that she's hungry and that if Denji cooks something, she'll turn her back. It's funny how problematic the situation is and technically dire, but it's so nonchalantly just thrown to the side because Naoyuta is hungry, and I think this fits perfectly up her alley with the attitude being very flippant. She seemed annoyed and then she seemed excited and happy that she was able to control Asa, and then now she's hungry and agreeable and just does her own thing. I absolutely adore how all of this situation is joined with Asa sleeping with the dogs. Like, she's not sitting around the desk or anything, she's slump with those dogs, knocked out entirely. But from here we get some pretty questionable things. Stuff that has not only piqued my interest for Naoyuta and her perspective of the world and for Denji in general, but also the, I guess, emotional connection that Denji has towards Asa that's proving to be, I would say, a lot more fruitful than what we may have originally expected. See, the way Naoyuta talks to Denji is in this weird passive, are you sure type of way. Do you really want me to do this? She brings up a ton of what I can only assume information that Denji has brought up about himself over the year that they've been together. They seem very close in this regard because Naoyuta is kind of doing this out of the seemingly best interest of Denji, saying that every woman you meet tries to kill you, right? What makes you think this dog is any different? Very aggressive, very one-dimensional, and she's not entirely wrong, but in the same way she actually is, because even though every woman that Denji has met has tried to kill him, the understanding of those women were entirely different. They all had different values and different perspectives on Denji and vice versa, and it's not outright true that all they wanted to do was to kill him. That might have been one of the boxes being ticked at the beginning, but slowly they changed. Even with Makima, you can view it a little bit differently because of her infatuation infatuation with Pochita, the chainsawman devil in general. So while she never actually seen Denji for being Denji, there's still the lingering connection there and the effect that she had on Denji. But I think more of the important ones for people seeing Denji as Denji, and even though they might have tried to kill him at one point, have come to turn around and enjoy his company, enjoy his being. Power, Reze, Himeno, you could argue a tiny bit of Kobeni because they do confide in each other at the end. So it's a pretty fickle statement, but I assume the way Denji has talked about it sounds very convincing, mostly because he tries to convince himself in that regard. I love how Denji responds to this. He's thinking very heavily, and that it's the feeling that he gets towards Asa that is good, and that in itself is kind of very uplifting after all they've been through, after the weirdness that has surrounded them both. Even being called a loser, he still has a good feeling about her. Zoom out just a little bit and Yoru is underneath trying to kill Denji, and even Asa originally was trying to manipulate the situation to kill Denji. It makes me feel sad that even when he gets a good feeling about someone, even when he starts to open up a little bit more, so many hurdles, so many barricades, so many things just stand in his way to getting what he wants. More rightfully what he deserves, I would say. A loving, caring person. If you haven't already noticed, I think this will prove very vital for the future of the story, especially with what this chapter does to Asa and Yoru, and more so how it will come back with in the future. See, the thing is, Naruto doesn't really care what Denji does because he can't technically die, which is kind of weird that she knows that, but I can only assume Denji has told her a lot of the escapades that he's gone on with in part 1. But she offers 2 conditions, 2 rules. First one, very playful, she wants to eat ice cream every single day, and I think her value towards food is very similar to Denji, so I love this. He's also cooking a lot more, which is honestly adorable within its own right because he's never done it prior, so now that he's cooking for Naruto, it just makes me believe that he's feeling more into that role of Aki's shoes. It's very sad, but seeing that growth is beautiful. The second rule is that he can no longer get friendly with her, and this is where you see, I guess, kind of the Makima resemblance or personality really start to come out, because not only is she kind of wearing the iconic high-waisted pants that Makima donned throughout the entirety of part 1, also donning the Makima braids, but you see the personality start to trickle over, the manipulative, playful, coyish Makima personality that she does. This mostly involves kind of warping the situation within facial expressions and bodily movements, but she does mention her scent, genuinely trying to convince Denji that do not get close with her, her scent is off, it is best this way. Obviously Denji's shocked, he's annoyed, he's upset, he's pushed within a corner, but what we did find out is that the dog smell that Denji in the previous chapter was so caught up on is actually pushed through Naruto. She loves the smell of wet dog. I adore that little connection. Denji was freaking out about it previously. This is where the choice comes in. Naruto will alter her memories, make her think that you stood her up. And of course, Denji does not know how to feel about this. After being backed into a corner and battled emotionally and mentally, Naruto wins. She comes out on top and Denji agrees. But the way he says it is really kind of like blasé about it, almost like he's denying his feelings. And it's difficult to kind of navigate that because he doesn't want to deny his feelings, but he's getting pressured by the control devil, which is now also his little sister or even daughter in a lot of aspects. So it's just weird, uncomfortable situation in general. But he puts her first, which, as sad as it is, I find it rather fitting. See, I am more than surprised that altering the memories of Asa and Yoru worked so well, because the end of the chapter is them getting stood up by Denji, waiting in front of the school. They do not have a singular clue whatsoever, which is genuinely something I find very interesting. For as powerful as Yoru should technically be, even within this weakened state, to be so easily manipulated and controlled on such a deep level by another horseman, I didn't think would be possible. Even with Naruto as a child and coming into a very early understanding of her abilities, it is enough. From here you get the perfect example of Asa, with her saying that she does not care in the slightest, followed up by the longest dive into her personal feelings and her mental state. See, even after being stood up, she tries not to care. She always puts on that face and attitude, but her words mean the complete opposite. I wouldn't say this is the first time that you've seen seen this, but this is definitely the concrete evidence or proof that Asa has genuine feelings now for Denji. They are powerful, that they are growing. And the way that she expresses this is very cautiously, saying that there's something wrong with her, that all she should care about is getting her body back, which after taking into consideration the rant that she just had about not caring, she clearly does care, and she cares a lot more than she puts on. But of course this wouldn't be Chainsaw Man, and this wouldn't be a Fujimoto story if we didn't leave it on a very ominous cliffhanger, a very questionable one. See, the person that rocks up in front of the school is none other than Yoshida, doing what he does best, being weird, being a little bit of a creep, just kind of gauging the situation, the smirk, the smile, the attitude, everything that he does just fills me with so much anxiety to the extent of I just don't know what this guy is trying to do. But he asks for Asa to keep him company for a bit, and nothing good can come out of this. That is where we end, but good news, we do have a chapter next week. My thoughts currently are really bad when it comes to Yoshida because I jumped straight towards the idea of he's about to kill her. He thinks Denji has revealed his identity, time to get rid of her. The problem is that his approach towards her doesn't really seem like that, but on the other hand, it actually kind of does. It works both ways, and that's just his type of character. He sits so central within anything that you don't know what direction he would go in. This character is so annoying to place anywhere that I love it, and Fujimoto knows this. That's why he keeps using him in such an ambiguous type of way. It was only a couple chapters prior where Fami, the third horseman, was looking at Yoshida with interest and intrigue. That's where the whole Yoshida is a horseman theory was spawned from. Are we finally going to live up to that idea? Could he theoretically be Death? Surely not, right? He has no indicators for it, but clearly he knows more about everything than he has originally let on. He's not just looking out for Denji. There is more here, but I'll save all those thoughts for a separate video just for him. However, I would like to hear all of your thoughts on the chapter right now. Thank you.